Watch what happens the moment someone says, "I need to set a boundary." Their face changes. Something tightens. The conversation doesn't open, it shuts down. We're told boundaries create healthy relationships. What if they're quietly training us to disconnect? Boundary setting has become a cultural reflex, a billion-dollar industry built on a simple promise: protect yourself and connection will follow. But something strange happened as this language exploded. Loneliness didn't decline, it spiked. In 2019, 35% of American adults reported chronic loneliness. By 2023, that number was over 60%. Those trends aren't random, and once you see why, you can't unsee it. First, precision matters. Real boundaries exist, they're necessary. I'm leaving if you keep screaming at me. That's a boundary. It governs what you do in response to harm. But notice how the language has shifted. You can't bring up your ex. You must validate me before disagreeing. You need to give me 3 days' notice before making plans. Those don't regulate your behavior, they regulate someone else's. One protects against abuse, the other manages people. We've collapsed those two ideas, and that confusion has consequences. Here's the claim I'm making. Modern boundary culture doesn't just fail to create connection, it actively blocks it. Not because boundaries are wrong, but because we're no longer using them as boundaries. The word boundary came from clinical psychology. It was designed for extreme cases: abuse, addiction, enmeshment. Then therapy language went viral, and the threshold collapsed. Now mild discomfort gets labeled a boundary violation. Your mother asks about your dating life. Boundary violation. Your friend vents about work. Boundary violation. Your partner wants more time together. Boundary violation. Normal relational friction has been medicalized, and when everything is a violation, nothing is workable. Relationships don't deepen without friction, they deepen through it. At the same time, we adopted an optimization mindset. Swipe left on red flags, cut off people who drain your energy, curate relationships for perfect alignment. This isn't relationship building, it's quality control. But relationships aren't products, they're living systems. They require tolerance for miscommunication, repair, and unmet expectations. Think about the relationships that matter most in your life. They survived awkward moments, hurt feelings, neediness. Apply today's boundary logic to those moments, and those relationships wouldn't exist. You'd be safer and completely alone. Here's the uncomfortable part. Learning to regulate your own emotions is hard. It requires distress tolerance, self-soothing, and reality checking. Regulating other people is easier. Can't tolerate insecurity? Make it a boundary. They can't mention their ex. Struggle with criticism? Make it a boundary. They must validate you first. Avoid conflict? Make it a boundary. They have to communicate perfectly or you disengage. Emotional avoidance gets rebranded as self-protection, and the irony is brutal. The more you outsource regulation to other people's compliance, the more fragile you become. Because capacity only grows through exposure, not avoidance. Now zoom out. There's an entire economy built on your relational anxiety. Therapy influencers, boundary coaches, attachment-style content. The model is simple. Pathologize normal discomfort, sell the framework to interpret it. When the advice makes you lonelier, the system doesn't self-correct, it escalates. Maybe you need more self-love. Perhaps you're anxious attached. The framework is never questioned. Only you are. That's not healing. That's customer retention. So what actually works? Not boundary elimination. That's chaos. The alternative is capacity. Capacity is the ability to stay present with discomfort without shutting down. Compare the difference. Instead of, "You can't mention your ex," try, "When that comes up, I feel insecure. I'm working on it. Can you be patient with me?" One controls behavior, the other invites collaboration. Instead of, "You must validate me before disagreeing," try, "I'm feeling defensive. Give me a few minutes, then let's talk." One manages them, the other manages yourself. Capacity keeps connection intact while growth happens. The old framework says, "Protect your peace." The better question is, how small is your peace that it can't survive friction? The old framework says, "Cut out toxic people." The new one asks, is this harm or is this imperfection? The old framework builds walls. The new one builds tolerance. And tolerance isn't weakness, it's strength that can't be monetized. Here's the cost of boundary maximalism. You will feel safe. You will also be unknown. You'll have clean rules, perfect alignment, no drains, and no one close enough to see you when you're difficult. Connection doesn't come from negotiation. It comes from endurance, from staying when it's awkward, repairing instead of exiting, assuming good intent before reaching for self-protection. That's not what boundary culture trains you to do. It trains you to retreat. And retreat, taken far enough, becomes isolation. If you think this argument fails, tell me where. Is it the language drift, the optimization trap, the emotional outsourcing? Because if those mechanisms are real, and they are, the conclusion follows. And if it makes you uncomfortable, that's the point. We need to talk about what we've been sold and what it's costing us.